Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to pop the hood on the global economy and see what really makes it tick.
We all see it in the news, right? Booms, recessions, these crazy financial crises. It feels, totally chaotic and unpredictable. But what if it's not? What if there's actually a predictable pattern behind all of it?
Okay, so the key to cracking this whole thing open? It's a huge shift in how you look at it. You've got to stop thinking about the economy as just a bunch of random stories or political arguments or, competing ideologies. Instead, you need to see it for what it really is. It's a machine, a predictable mechanical system.
All right, so to really get this machine, we got to look at the blueprints. We're going to break it down into 6 parts, starting with the big idea and then building up from there.
Okay, first things first. Let's really lock in this core idea. The economy? It doesn't care about opinions or political ideologies. Nope. It's driven by a set of basic mechanical rules. Think of it like gravity. These forces are always at work, whether we notice them or not.
So, any machine is just a sum of its parts, right? Well, this economic engine is built from just 5 core components. That's it. If you can understand these 5 things, you'll pretty much understand how the whole system works. So, let's dive in and look at the parts list.
Okay, the first part, and honestly, this is the most important one, the absolute foundation, is productivity. It's just how good we are at making stuff, how efficiently we can turn labor and resources into actual goods and services. And here's the kicker, this is the only thing that creates real, long-term wealth. Period.
And all that productivity? Well, it's not just for fun. It generates income. Every single thing we make, every service we provide, that value we create, it turns directly into money that flows to people, to businesses, to governments.
So, what happens to all that income? Well, we spend it. Spending is what it's all about on the demand side of things. It's the fuel that drives the economy day in and day out. And you have to remember this simple rule. One person's spending is always another person's income.
Okay, now we get to a really fascinating part of the machine, the one gear that kind of changes everything. Credit. Seriously, think of it like a time machine for your money. It lets you reach into the future, grab the income you expect to earn, and pull it into today so you can spend it right now.
But of course, that time machine has a flip side. Wherever you find credit, you're going to find its shadow. Debt. All debt really is the promise to pay back that future income you just borrowed. It's the bill that always, always comes due.
All right, so those are our 5 parts. But how do they all fit together? Well, they combine to create 2 totally different engines inside this one big machine. One engine drives all the short-term ups and downs, and the other, that one, drives real long-term growth. And listen, this is probably the most important distinction you need to get. On one hand, you've got the credit engine. It's like a shot of adrenaline, It creates these short, intense bursts, the booms and the busts that we all feel. But then you have the productivity engine. That's more like a healthy diet and exercise. It's the slow, steady, powerful force that builds real wealth and actually improves our lives over time.
Okay, so we've got the parts, we've got the 2 engines. Now let's see how this thing actually runs. Because this machine isn't just sitting there. It's constantly in motion, running on these incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing feedback loops. And that's what creates the cycles we all live through.
So check this out. Here's how a boom literally feeds on itself. It all starts with more credit becoming available. That new credit fuels a ton of spending, which starts pushing up the prices of things. Like stocks or houses. Now, as those prices go up, the collateral that people are using for loans is suddenly worth more. This makes them look like a safer bet to the banks. So what do the banks do? Well, they lend even more money, and the whole cycle just keeps repeating and getting bigger and bigger.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. This machine works both ways. That same powerful amplification kicks in just as hard, but in reverse. When the cycle turns, asset prices start to fall. Suddenly, collateral isn't worth as much, so banks get nervous and restrict lending. That means less spending, which pushes prices down even more, and the whole thing spirals downward. That's how a boom turns into a bust.
So, we've seen how the engine is supposed to run. But what happens when it breaks down? Because, this machine has some known weak spots. And these aren't just random accidents. They are predictable, hardwired failure modes built right into the system.
Think of these as the warning lights on the dashboard. You get excess leverage, that's when debt starts growing way faster than the income needed to pay it back. Then you have mispriced risk. That's when things are going great and everybody kind of forgets that things can go wrong. They think the party's never going to stop. Then there's moral hazard, which is a fancy way of saying if people think they'll get bailed out, they'll take crazier risks. And finally, because the whole system is so interconnected, one little failure can set off a chain reaction, knocking everything down like a row of dominoes.
So that begs the question, right? If this machine has all these predictable flaws, can't somebody just step in and fix it? Can policymakers be the mechanics who tune the engine and stop it from blowing up?
Well, this is where we see the real limits of what they can do. Policymakers have a toolkit for sure. They can mess with interest rates to change the cost of credit, or they can inject government spending. They can definitely tune the engine, but there's a whole list of things they can't do. They can't just snap their fingers and create more productivity. They can't just make bad debt disappear. So here's the real takeaway. They can try to make the ride a little less pumpy, they can smooth out the peaks and valleys of the cycles, but they can't stop the machine from cycling. That's just how it's built.
So what's the bottom line in all of this? It's actually pretty simple. You can't have a meaningful debate about economic policy, or politics for that matter, if you don't first understand the machine. It's like arguing about who should be driving the car before anyone's agreed on how the engine actually works. You have to understand the machine. That always comes first.
So okay, we've just laid out how today's machine works, but that leaves us with one final huge question. The rules we just talked about, those are the rules for the game today. But what about tomorrow? With massive forces like AI, climate change, and just wild shifts in geopolitics completely redrawing the map, you have to wonder, will the fundamental design of this engine even hold up? Or are we on the verge of seeing a completely new kind of economic machine being built right before our eyes?